This segment of The Exchange on My West Michigan is sponsored by the Michigan Wildlife Council. How lucky are we to live in such a beautiful place as Michigan with its abundant wildlife and natural resources? Did you know there are conservation efforts underway to protect all of that beauty and wonder that's here in our own backyard? The Michigan Wildlife Council has launched an educational campaign to make people aware of the groups and organizations and the people who are doing that work. And joining us this morning are Jeff Poet from the Michigan Wildlife Council and Andy McIntyre from John Ball Zoo, where there is work being done every day to support conservation projects around Michigan. Good morning and welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For folks who are not familiar with the Michigan Wildlife Council, who are you and what's with this new campaign?
Well, I'm one of the Wildlife Council members, and we have a campaign going on to really, our focus is to educate the public and about wildlife conservation and the management of that. And it kind of goes beyond just what is you would think kind of comes out of the conservation as far as benefiting the wildlife and the habitat, but it goes on to the benefits of anybody that participates in any outdoor activity, from hiking and biking and backpacking and fishing and kayaking and canoeing. So it's pretty extensive, and we're trying to educate the public on that, those crossovers.
Yeah, with the joys that come along with living in Michigan is a responsibility to be aware of some of these issues, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you don't always engage, and you don't know what's going on and some other facets, but they benefit all of us typically, and we're trying to educate on that.
Yeah, zoos play a big role in that in general, don't they? In terms of just really the conservation message and the work that you're doing every day.
Yes, I mean the mission of the zoo is to inspire people to become active participants in wild conservation, and that takes many different forms depending upon how you look at it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that little birdie you're interested in, the Kirtland's Warbler. Tell me about this bird.
Well,
we're looking at some pictures, by the way, too. It's a beautiful bird.
It is a beautiful bird. You know, warblers are a smaller species of songbird that you're going to find out there, and this particular one is very unique because it lives in very specific habitat. And that's jack pine that is actually between 5 and 20 years. And so it's very unique, and in the past that kind of habitat would have been available more often because of natural cycles. But now things are a little more limited, and actually Michigan is one of a few areas that will be found in the United States. It was once the only place you would find it in the United States.
So is this bird becoming more scarce?
Actually, it was much more than it is now. So the zoo partners with other institutions that lead wildlife conservation efforts for the Kirtland's Warbler. And what we do is send a staff member up there to walk basically a line through the woods and listen for singing males. And that allows us to determine the population. It was once down, the singing male numbers were actually around 200 in the population. And that's come back up now to around 2,300 plus.
Huh. It's a distinctive song that they sing, like you. I won't ask you to sing.
I was about to say, I knew you may ask me to do that, and I didn't come prepared for that today. But yes, they're going to advertise their territory and try to find also females out there as they sing. And so that's a lot of times how you can identify birds, obviously, is by their song.
Yeah. I think people think about the zoo and going and seeing the wonderful animals there, you know, that are on exhibit. They don't realize that behind the scenes, all of the work. And the Kirtland Warblers are not the only ones at John Ball Zoo that you guys are really working on.
They're not, actually. So we actually look at our wildlife conservation in two ways. We generate funding through various programs that we can send abroad to projects, but then we also send our staff locally to all the great species that are in need of assistance in Michigan. Piping plovers along the shoreline of Lake Michigan. There's also the Kirtland's Warbler, there's wood turtles that we work with, and eastern Massasauga rattlesnakes as well.
And this is a wonderful example of the critical work that's being done. Failure to do this results in what for us?
The loss. And that's what our mission is to educate, and we're educating through examples like these great, fantastic stories that really kind of highlight the organizations and the volunteers and the scientists and biology folks that are engaged in it day in, day out to make sure that it thrives, not only for us to enjoy, but more importantly for future generations.
All right, you can learn more about the Michigan Wildlife Council and many more great wildlife conservation projects on their website. We've put a link to it on our site at WZZM13.com under The Exchange.